Listen and believe this, even though it happened here, even though it sounds so distant, so old, and so foreign.
I can hear cannons, and I can see fire in the sky to the south. The war is so near. Lodz will be taken any moment. Our neighbor insists we should leave. Run away as far as we can. Leave everything. Just get away. His wife is crying. But where can we go? Panic. Throngs leaving their homes. My mother talks Mrs. Grabinski out of her ridiculous plans to flee. Other neighbors come. More Jews seeking advice. Someone says everyone should run, so the enemy won't send us off to work camps. My father doesn't know what to do. He runs to my uncle, and then uncle back to father. They've decided. We're going to stay. We will not run. Friday, September 8th, 1939. German patrols are moving on Piotrkowska Street. Lodz is occupied. Their faces are like Martians. The conquerors. Damn them. Our local Germans greeted their countrymen. Civilians, even boys and girls, are jumping into the passing military cars with the happy Heil Hitler. Whatever was hidden in the past now shows its true face.
Confidential. Strictly secret. To the Regierungspräsidentin Kalisz. Jews must be placed in a closed ghetto. I will fix the date when the establishment of the ghetto will suddenly take place. At the set hour, the previously defined border of the ghetto will be manned by forces assigned for this purpose. The streets will be closed off by barbed wire barriers and other blocking devices. We must succeed in drawing out all the valuables squirreled away by the Jews. It is obvious that the establishment of the ghetto is only a transitional measure. I reserve for myself the decision of when and by what means the city of Lodz will be cleansed of Jews. In any case, the final aim must be to burn out entirely this pestilent abscess. Übelhor.
March 16th, 1940. Bloody Thursday. A pogrom in Lodz. Jewish tenants in the big apartment building on Piotrkowska Street are ordered to leave their apartments in 15 minutes. Anyone found inside is simply shot. 100 people are killed. We run for our lives to the filthy and narrow streets of the renowned Baluti slum.
I am a simple Jew from Lodz. I am not a politician, but only a workhorse in heavy harness, pulling a wagon loaded with human lives. I must build from the ground up the self-administration of the ghetto as a small-scale city. There are between 8 and 20,000 skilled workers in the ghetto. I could organize them to work for the authorities. You would supply the raw materials. We would deliver the finished products against payment of wages or against the supply of food for the whole ghetto population. Chaim Rumkowski, eldest of the Jews of the Litzmannstadt ghetto.
Our tailor workshops make military uniforms for the Germans. 1,200 people work here. The halls are overcrowded. I saw an ironing board installed on the stairs and an old presser finishing a uniform. Jewish workers have never been part of such a huge workforce. It makes them feel strong, even arrogant. Walking through the halls, you hear haughty remarks.
You can get a gigantic sardine sandwich in New York for a nickel. Sardines, sauerkraut, cheese, and white bread with olives.
Stop it. Such talk is dangerous.
Irresponsible elements are trying to sow unrest for their own selfish reasons. Ignore these rumors. Soup kitchens are being established and will serve 10,000 meals daily. Chaim Rumkowski, eldest of the Jews in the Litzmannstadt ghetto.
Hesitantly, I run one hand over my restless body, bump into bones, ribs, and realize that I was fatter only recently, fleshier. My stomach is sunken in. I'm pressing directly into my intestines. I gradually become aware of a pain.
At first, when we noticed our shirts becoming wider around the necks, skirts and blouses dangling around our bodies, we began laughing. We made fun of our deformities. Now it's a matter of character to hold out, to make it through.
When there's no other way, a person gets sick. By lying down, you might bring yourself back. So we give one another the advice, lie down for a while. A few days of quiet and you'll get back to normal.
Cold at night, 15 degrees below zero. Exhausted, we creep onto hard wooden planks, squeezing together as much as we can. Movement is impossible. children babble, cry, and whine. People make the noises of their diseases. Memories pour in, upsetting me, but finally quiet down. I keep thinking of my youth and the mistakes I made and must atone for by being in the ghetto. If my Zionism had been real, I'd be in the land of Israel now. If my Bolshevism had been real, I'd be in Moscow now. Idiot. You were an idiot not to save yourself in time. Not to recognize the threat and get away.
There are many in the ghetto who simply laugh. Legions of shirkers who ridicule the necessity of working. Why should they work? Many of you suffer from the illusion that the ghetto situation is coming to an end. Unfortunately, it will go on and on.
Disillusionment with Rumkowski's rule has burst into the open. Crowds in the street are attacking food wagons and have to be beaten back by guards.
Demonstrators are demanding increases in food rations, fuel for heat, baths, and laundries.
They demanded to be heard, while I had the Germans sitting in my office. I let them speak, then threw them out with a shout, "Get out, you rabble! I'm going to teach you how to work and how to behave properly. I will make you forget your impertinence. I'm going to teach the Jewish population to have respect for their Jewish leader."
Rumkowski called in German stormtroopers.
For 50 marks, I got reports on the workers' secret meetings. I established a prison and then, one by one, put the leaders inside. Quiet and order now prevail in the ghetto. There's no more politics in the factories. Dictatorship is not an ugly word. With it, I earned the Germans' respect.
Secret Service Reichsführer Heinrich Himmler kept German Rumkowski waiting from early morning until 4 p.m. before the German High Command's cars began gathering for their visit in Balut Market.
How are you doing here?
We work and we build a city of labor.
And how's the work going here?
Not badly, I think. Hopefully, it will build even better. I'm doing everything to have the ghetto work more and better. My motto is work, peace, and order.
Then go on working for the benefit of your brethren in the ghetto. It will do you good.
Koski Chaim, der ältste Jude, ist eingestellt bei die Gestapo. Mir jeder sind seine Brüder, und versorgt ihn Papa. Macht technisch immer jeden Tag auf so Gewalt zu schreien, oi, oi, oi. Jeder eine fragt, a zweite Schale, oi. Sogt der Chaim, es geht so.
Rumkowski and several other ghetto dignitaries came to visit during our last class. He told us to work diligently, keep clean, and behave well. demagoguery, megalomania. He fired 2 teachers who were communist, the sadist moron. Rumkovsky looked into the kitchen and tasted the soup, which was really excellent for his sake. He's gotten fatter and younger looking. Meanwhile, another student from our class died today from hunger exhaustion. He was the 3rd victim of starvation in the class. Lung sickness is raging in the ghetto. It mows people down like typhus and dysentery. Everyone was waiting for Roosevelt's speech. Of course, he didn't say anything. Wait.
There's a minimum of 3 days' wait to bury the dead, and often as much as 10 days. Before the war, the Jewish population's death rate averaged 6 per day. But now, even with 200 gravediggers, no more than 50 graves per day can be dug in the frozen ground. So even the dead have to wait in line. Sad, but true.
Hearse driver, who are you going to pick up?
I'll find someone. We have enough corpses in the ghetto.
But who will pick you up?
No one has to pick me up. My mare will bring me to the cemetery. She knows the way.
The de-Jewing of Prague is underway. Evacuation to Lodz, the ghetto of Litzmannstadt, where it is said a council of elders will happily receive us as guests. We Jews will live there in freedom, be together, and finally have peace. A rare bit of luck for which we can thank the Gestapo. Exhausted, suitcases in our hands, packs on our backs, more than 1,000 harrowed people creep down the gangplanks. Deep muck. Polish-Russian autumn.
Laufe! Laufe, Schweine, Juden!
Where is the helpful hand that was to stretch out to us? Who will take us up? Thousands of people being dumped into the grimness of Lodz. No one. I can't get oriented. I don't even realize it's because I haven't eaten in a day and a night. A neglected area with a few houses, curious people standing on the sides of the street. A few wagons with gaunt horses to pick up our elderly and sick. Then we pass other wagons, not pulled by horses at all, but by people. Faces which have overcome all pain. Expressions which say, "We will hold out. You cannot destroy us."
They arrived here in long lines. We were struck by their elegant sports clothes, their furs. They looked like people on some sort of vacation. You couldn't tell there was a war on the way those people dressed.
Lakes of muck, stinking garbage, shabby stores, cigarette hawkers, children offering things to sell. Smells that are not experienced in the West. Shrieking next to silence. This was the outcast section of Lodz, the Litzmannstadt Ghetto.
Somewhere along the line, they had been misled. They couldn't be reasoned with. They swore indignantly. Some of them even asked if they couldn't reside in a hotel of some sort.
Children are laying siege to the school where we are being kept. They want soup from us. The children wait for hours in the courtyards and by the windows to have their bowls and pots filled. Dire need cries out from their eyes. One slice of bread is a great prize for them, and once they've been given such a gift, they always come back. It's impossible to get away from them. They haven't an iota of shame left in them. They seem like they're no longer creatures with souls. They don't speak. They just look at me, and I can't stand it. Their gaze gnaws at the pit of my stomach. Here in the eyes of these children, I see something I've known before only as a concept. Hunger.
All this weighing of portions, the haggling, grabbing for crumbs. Will it ever end? No one is going to take bread that is short-weighed by even 1 decagram, since the 40 decagrams allotted to us are not enough to stave off starvation.
She must cheat now. Her husband must not notice that his slice has been made thicker. Women need less, she has often heard. A few decagrams will not be such a great loss for her, and they might help him. He wants to ignore the swelling in his hands, but his tools won't rest securely in his palm anymore. The hammer and saw fall. He takes the bread. For the sake of his family, he wants to live. He watches his wife. in case the swelling symptoms show up in her. One day the war will come to an end, and then he will be able to give the kids an upbringing and his wife an easier life. But when?
The Sabbath. Police announce newcomers must appear on the market square at 9 a.m. A speech from the eldest? We go. A gallows. We know what is to come. Suddenly, a man is brought to the square guarded by soldiers with machine guns. He cries, "Let me live. I haven't broken any laws." The soldier asks, "Is the noose too tight?" The show goes on for 15 minutes, but we must stay there for 2 hours. The scene is photographed and filmed.
Terrible retribution has been decreed for stealing a spool of thread or causing defects in machinery. Everybody has to be extremely careful. No politicking. The walls have ears. This warning is especially directed at you, new arrivals. You talk too much. There will be arrests.
Intimidation through fear. No rising of indignation. No rebellion. Only trembling.
Anushi, my golden child, I think of you constantly. I'm alone in my pain. Are you as gray as I am now? I see you.
Once again, a gang of scoundrels is circulating stories that the entire population is to be deported. A plague of gossip. I would like to murder them. These rumors are 100% false. The authorities are full of admiration for our work. Remember that when there is a demand for more deportees, I will put all the parasites on the list.
East winds shatter window panes. Crows eat the bark off naked trees. Keys freeze in the keyholes. Fear seizes the ghetto. Preparations. Evacuation of 10,000 ghetto inhabitants. Who will it be? People convicted of selling food rations. Welfare recipients. The fear of where and the question why. We are told the evacuees are being sent to Polish villages to work the land, but this is only rumor. The one thing we know and see is the expulsion every day of 700 to 800 Jews. The Resettlement Commission determines which limbs to cut, possibly whose blood to waste. Deportation summonses, wedding invitations, we call them.
I give you my word of honor that there is no danger waiting. Nothing bad will happen to people of goodwill.
"800 persons per day have to be supplied. Police enter the apartments of those ordered deported. They find starved children, old people frozen to death.
More and more Jews are being demanded for deportation. Thousands more.
Deliverers of food to the ghetto have been cut back. Bread is now the ghetto's life. The hunger psychosis, fear of dying from starvation. Evacuees carry bread, potatoes, margarine in their bundles. March 7th. People freeze to death at the train station where they have to wait for 9 hours for their train to depart. The price of bread is soaring beyond reach. 35 marks a loaf, 40 marks. Some report voluntarily. It can't be worse there. We'll be on farms. We'd gladly eat from a pig's trough, if only to get out of this ghetto. People from Vienna, Berlin, Cologne, and Prague. In barely half a year, they have been stripped of all their European finery, and now must make another journey into the unknown. March 16th. Our bread ration has been cut. Instead of bread for 6 days, it has to suffice for 7. So bread has jumped from 50 marks to 80 marks. March 18th. 1 loaf of bread for 100 marks. The same fate awaits us all. If not today, then later, tomorrow. No one is safe any longer.
We are on the threshold of very bad times, and everyone should be aware of this. Only work can save us from the worst. I am going to set into production many new factories. By increasing the shifts, I will strive to have 90% of the ghetto's population employed.
A neglected factory, out of commission for years, but still with steam drive power, is selected for the establishment of a full textile mill. The difficulties are tremendous. Equipment and materials have to be cannibalized from other plants.
Work protects us from annihilation. everyone, 14 years old and older, must work for a living.
From one old factory comes an engine to run the spinning mill. Usable bits of leather are cut to shape and then sewn by hand for belting.
As far as older people are concerned, people who are not able to work, I trust God will not forsake them. The work card is your passport to peace.
May 4th, 1942. My legs have become weak. I can barely walk. We're so exhausted we don't have enough strength now to complain, let alone protest. Day to day, ration to ration. Deportations out to new shipments of Jews in. People live, people croak, like cattle.
We have more work in the shops, and more hands are being mobilized for labor, but productivity is constantly falling. Laborers and blue-collar workers are trapped. Workers out sick do not receive their daily food allocation. First comes hunger, and then perhaps deportation.
Less than an ounce of bread was all I had to eat today. My father gets the same portion. He works for the construction department. Can a man live like this and work as hard as he does? He looks terrible. He's lost nearly 70 pounds. We're all in bad shape, but nothing can be done about it. It's unbelievable, this hunger. People drop like poisoned flies. I despise this life.
The ghetto has not only become a labor camp, but also a sort of Nietzschean experimental laboratory from which only supermen will survive.
Just after 6 p.m., the members of the ghetto's orchestra sit on stage in somber clothes, serious and silent. Most of them work throughout the day in officially assigned jobs, braiding straw shoes or sorting old clothes. The Beethoven Symphony is performed in its entirety for the first time in the ghetto. The effect on the audience is profound. Theodore Bikel conducts the recital devotedly. The yellow Star of David quivers in sympathy when he sways to the overwhelming emotion of the music. The 400 people attending the performance take it as something ordained by God that Beethoven should be coming to their ears despite the cruelest reality in history. Never before in the concert halls of any European city have I experienced such an emotional thrill as here in the ghetto. The deliverance motif thunders majestically throughout the hall, and Ryder himself seems to be carried away. In this instant, we feel the vision of future salvation.
I try mentally to expand the limits of my existence, idealizing myself into the cosmos, to drive away my despair. I merge with the sun, the moon, the stars, and God. Nothing can harm me. I feel the millennia rushing past me. I can read Spinoza in the ghetto.
An artist from Prague is painting a silhouette of the ghetto from our barracks window. He's happy, rapturous, reveling over the beauties of the bleak scenery. He's not familiar yet with despair. The ghetto is swarming with Jews brought in from the provinces. Fleeing, hunted Jews. Yesterday in Pabianice, the Jews were put into the middle of a field and separated. Children ran crying and screaming around the field, searching for their parents, and the parents, unable to stand by and watch, beseeched the guards to let them keep their children. They were shoved back, and their children thrown to the ground and even over the fence. Nothing could be more shocking than my visit to the site on Mazarska Street, where over 1,000 women from Pabianice have been quartered. In every room, In every corner, I saw mothers, sisters, grandmothers shaken by sobs, quietly weeping for their little children who have been sent off to parts unknown. Some have lost 3, 4, even 6 children. Until now, people had thought that work orders would preserve the ghetto. Now it is clear that this was an illusion. There were plenty of orders for new work in Pabianice, but that did not protect the Jews against deportation. Fear for our ghetto's fate is keeping everyone up at night. Our last hope is our chairman. People believe that he will succeed in avoiding calamity. All this is the solution to their Jewish question. We must not forget that.
If I told you everything I know, you would not sleep. This way, I alone cannot sleep. The ghetto, too, is in the war.
Large shipments of baggage have been arriving in the ghetto for the past week. The people are tremendously puzzled by these shipments. Improvised sacks, not packed by their owners, but by other hands. These bundles contain clothing and bedding which has passed through disinfection. Jackets and coats, nearly all ripped along the seams. Prayer shawls. Letters, papers, ID cards fall out of the bundles. Rumkis, our ghetto currency, are in the billfolds. And there are often papers that were drawn up in the ghetto as well. $880 tons of clothing, 35 tons of shoes. In every generation, they have tried to annihilate us. And each time, he has saved us from their hands. If God had left us in Egypt, I'd be sitting in a hotel in Cairo now, drinking Turkish coffee. But I'm not interested in the flesh pots of Egypt. Moses knew what he was doing. If we'd stayed in Egypt, we would not have had the honor of being given the Torah. learned from the Torah. In famine, we go hungry. Under oppressors, we are beaten. We're the chosen people. There's nothing we can do about it. When the time comes for fighting, we will fight. But for the time being, it's not our calling. But what will we fight with? Our pinkies? Our weak arms? Where's our strong-armed leader? I don't see him. I look at the boys, how patiently they pull their carts. No one wants to give up his gift of life. A piece of wood cannot burn by itself. I cannot resist alone. God not only sealed his covenant with our forefathers, he sealed it with us. But don't we want to be cleverer than our ancestors? They let themselves be burned.
The ghetto awoke to an awful nightmare. German soldiers in a truck with 2 trailers pulled up in front of the hospital on Warrillow Street. Word spreads like wildfire. Fearful pandemonium. It took a pull to get a bed for a loved one, even a bed in a corridor. And now, everyone runs, if only to see them one more time. Perhaps somehow to save them. Around the hospital, the streets and approaches are blocked. Hundreds of Jewish policemen stand guard. The executioners can go about their work with no one to hinder them. Our distant cries can hardly reach them. A surgeon is caught during a forceps birth. A woman is taken 1 hour after her baby was delivered. Jewish policemen throw small children out the windows into the trucks. Men and women stand weeping in helpless groups, separated from their loved ones.
The sick who can move attempt to save themselves.
People knew that they were going to their deaths. They fought the Germans and had to be forced onto the trucks.
Gestapo cars rushed down Zgierska Street.
Gunshots.
Anyone seen fleeing has to pay with his life.
A woman fled the hospital, freshly sutured after the delivery of a stillborn child. She managed to get herself across the bridge and died.
Judgment Day. The sun stabs like needles. The heat is unbearable. There is no air to breathe. A crowd of 1,500 people is gathered on the fire brigade square. It is not simply curiosity which brings the people here today. Curiosity would not have been enough to tear people out of the lines at the potato stores and food distribution points. The crowd pushes closer and closer to the stage and to the left, where there is shade. We wait. A great tribe condemned to death. What will Rumkowski say? At 5:15, the chairman appears. He cannot control his tears. He weeps like a child.
A painful blow has struck the ghetto. We are being asked to deliver the best we possess. Children and the elderly. I never imagined that I would be forced to deliver the sacrifice to the altar with my own hands. In my old age, I must stretch out my arms and beg, brothers and sisters, hand them over to me. Fathers and mothers, give me your children. Yesterday afternoon, they gave me the order to send out from the ghetto more than 20,000 Jews. If not, they will do it. I must perform this difficult and bloody operation. I have to take children, because if not, others might be taken as well. God forbid. I must tell you a secret. They requested 24,000 victims. I succeeded in reducing the number to 20,000, but only on condition that these will be children up to age 10. Children over 10 are safe. From small hamlets, barely 1,000 arrived here. So what is better? That 80 or 90,000 Jews remain? Or that, God forbid, the whole population be extinguished? I implored on my knees, but it did not work. This is the most difficult order that I have ever had to carry out. Give into my hands the victims. Hand them over to me, so that we will avoid having further victims. And a population of 100,000 Jews be preserved. So they promised me, if we deliver our victims by ourselves, there will be peace.
The ghetto is now writhing in convulsions. I sit at home, casting furtive glances at my wife, who has aged dozens of years in the last 2 days. I look at my beautiful son, see his dark, hollow face, and the mortal fear lurking in his eyes. All the terror around me makes me fear for myself, makes me fear for my wife, makes me fear for my trembling child. All of us are candidates.
A child is contraband. His breath shouldn't even be heard. The mother places her unsure feet on the steps of the staircase. She wants to go down into the cellar, to bury herself in the farthest, wettest corner, and lay there till the house has been worked over. The neighbors warn. God forbid, the first place they look is the cellar. What if the child becomes frightened when it hears the shot and starts crying? Then the whole house, all of us are in for it.
Suddenly, gunshots outside. No time to think. Rifle butts against the door. Into a long line of people. I'm first, my mother behind me, father last. Father's 56, but he looks fine. He rubbed his cheeks, they have a normal color. But mother is thin. Very thin. Her face is drawn and her hair is all white. Moving slowly towards the selection commission, I hold my head straight. They tell me to go to the right. I wait. Other people are coming, but they are not my parents.
The freshness of the girl fell under the eyes of a Nazi party man. But no, the mother would not give up her child's hand while she lived. The smile on his twisted face trembled.
Turn to the wall!
She held the girl's hand more convulsively.
They put up resistance yesterday on Limanovsky Street, and now the Gestapo has stepped in.
The doctor searched my mother for some ailment. He couldn't find any, but they designated her to be taken. She kissed each one of us goodbye and left quickly. I couldn't muster the strength to look through the window. I was like a stone. My poor mother. I swear to all that is holy that if I could only know my mother would not be sent to her death, that she would survive. But I doubt very much that anything will save her. The bloodthirsty Nazi beast.
The Jewish police have been bought. Their children were exempted from the order. They've been given 3 pounds of bread a day for their bloody bit of work. Bread to gorge themselves on, and an extra portion of sausage and sugar. They are not to be envied at all.
At the last minute, I hide Muka in the clothes basket. The poor thing begins to cry. I should have stayed with her. I should have hidden with her in the cellar. My dear child, naked, barefoot, left crying miserably in a clothes basket. I betrayed you. Your father deserted you. I did not protect you because I feared for my own life. I cannot write. I won't find peace. How can a father desert a child and run away? In whose name did Muka lose her life? Why did she
1 week. 8 days that seemed an eternity. A primitive force has passed through the ghetto and swept away some 15,000 people. Now, life appears to have resumed its former course. There are still some mothers weeping for children shipped out from the ghetto. But now, the population is obsessed with getting bread, rations, and has gone from immediate personal tragedy right back into daily life. Is this some kind of numbing of the nerves? It's beyond comprehension.
A rumor spread through the ghetto today that 50 children who were deported have returned. People were also saying that resettled children are being kept in the garden of an orphanage Chairman Rumkowski used to run. Fantasy. No basis in fact. Absolutely nothing is known about the fate of any people resettled from the ghetto.
First snow, 12 noon, cold. I'm sitting in my unheated office, writing with stiffened fingers. Cold is dreaded here even more than hunger. It's easier to fill an empty stomach than an empty stove. A crowd demolished a wooden shed on Brzezinska Street to steal the wood. The roof collapsed, crushing several people. No one came to their aid. Franya Żabnik died. The ghetto is dirty white. Wagons drawn by people wrapped like mummies. Freezing people struggle for a place in the food distribution lines. Pushing, hitting, swearing. Woe to him who challenges the person in front of him. A Kripo officer fell on a slippery sidewalk. He was uninjured, but janitors of the surrounding buildings were summoned and beaten, then ordered to clear the sidewalks of all traces of ice. Rumors again about what happened to our children and elderly. We're afraid they met the most horrible fate. Again, the Messiah fantasy. We are praying for a miracle. Only a miracle can save us. None of us can say what will happen tomorrow, what will happen in the end, why we're in this ghetto, or if there will be a tomorrow. We are beggars, lepers, outcasts, people without a bed, without a world. There is no other city like this anywhere. People over there, where there are dreams and desire and resistance. Come quickly. If this finishes, we will be so thinned out and so miserable, we won't even be able to enjoy seeing you. Everyone wants to live, to survive this, to know that this life was not completely meaningless.
A commission of Germans came to our shop today. Our rulers, the masters of life and death. No sign of an early end to the war, judging from these people from the outer world.
We Jews help them in their war, and they treat us worse than slaves, worse than pigs. I have to hold back with all my strength not to yell insults at them. We have to keep silent, even if our hearts are broken. There is no justice in the world, and even less in the ghetto.
Discussions with the ghetto administration in Lodz regarding the manufacture of 20 million steel cores for infantry munitions. The Supreme Army Command is prepared to make special machines available to the ghetto in order to use the exceptionally large manpower capacity there. The clearing of the ghetto appears to be momentarily postponed for the sake of armaments manufacturing. Government Director Weiska.
December 14th, 1943, 9:30 a.m. An automobile from Poznan arrives in Balut Market. Two men from the secret state police enter Chairman Rumkowski's office. Are you the eldest of the Jews? Let's talk, in private. 2 hours later, the chairman is taken out of the ghetto in the direction of the city. He has said that he must be ready to sacrifice his life at any time. The ghetto's officials wait, but there is no report. Anxious people foresee disaster. Hardly anyone can sleep peacefully. People feel Rumkowski is the ghetto. The next day, the chairman is back, obviously weary. He refuses to discuss the purpose of the investigation, saying only that he bears complete responsibility for everything that goes on in the ghetto.
I'm just a servant of the authorities. I have to bow my head and do as I'm told.
May 24th, 1944. To the Polish government in exile from the Jewish underground. There are still 80,000 Jews in Lodz. All other cities in Poland have been made Judenrein, Jew clean. The Lodz ghetto is completely sealed. Despite our efforts to make contact, we failed to get in. It's an island, totally cut off from the rest of the world.
This is London. Under the command of General Eisenhower, Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France.
The beaches are as busy as Piccadilly Circus. There's a stream of traffic coming off the craft and going away up the roads and into the interior.
People were calling the happy news to one another in loud voices. Within half an hour, there wasn't a person who didn't know. We Jews celebrated with abandon, not caring that we could be heard by the Germans. Good news, huh? The German criminal police officer asks, coming on two Jews talking in the street, slamming their heads together. You like the news, huh?
Mine craters, bomb craters, shell holes. The evidence of the weight and accuracy of the bombardment was astounding.
There's an immense fleet off the beaches. It seems as if all the ships in the world were concentrated there. And although we must avoid undue optimism, things aren't going too badly. No, they're not going too badly at all. I spoke to one old man, an old farmer, who said he'd hidden under his farm cart while 100 shells were put down in and around his farm. And he said that his farm was blown to bits, but in spite of all that, he said, we're delighted to have you.
On orders from the SS, the German police raid the apartment of a man named Tafel, who is seized in the very act of listening to his radio. They raid Tataka's barber shop, where secret newspapers have been available and were sometimes read aloud. 2 radio sets were found. The ghetto has always been filled with all kinds of rumors. A few persons were daring enough to listen to the news and pass on what they heard. We all know the danger which now lies in store for these unfortunates.
Lvov fell. Brest fell. The Nazi beast lies in an agony of despair. It will not be long now. Maybe we'll have a narrow escape. But he still lusts for our blood. In all of us there burns such hate for the Germans, such yearning for revenge, that we must live on. We can hear the blows of the hammers on the walls of our prison.
June 9th, 1944. To Reichsführer Himmler. The Armaments Inspection has undertaken considerable counter-thrusts against your order to clear the ghetto in Litzmannstadt. Reichsminister Speer intends to present manufacturing figures to the Führer. I have completed preparations for clearing the ghetto and duly inform you of this thrust to thwart your orders. Heil Hitler. Reiser.
Dear Reiser, many thanks for your telegram. Continue to carry the matter out as planned. Himmler.
July 13th, 1944. Terror in the streets. People making their way as usual to the kitchens, the workshops, when police swarm in on them from all sides. People warn each other, don't go out, you'll be caught. Workers selected to leave the ghetto are being hunted like wild animals. Some people try to escape the roundups by fleeing, by cunning. Fugitives change their hiding places by night, one step ahead of the patrols, through the labyrinth of passageways and courtyards. But they cannot hold out in the long run. Every day, emaciated men and women in a state of nervous exhaustion are turning themselves in at Central Prison. But some of the damned find a way out. They buy someone else to go in their place. The price, 2 loaves of bread and 1 kilogram of sugar. In 1944, in the Lodz Ghetto, Jews would go out into bondage, into uncertainty, and perhaps to destruction to satisfy their hunger. Bread for a life.
On the instructions of the mayor of Litzmannstadt, the ghetto will be evacuated. Workshop crews will go as units, together with their families. 5,000 persons must report daily to the railroad station. Chaim Rumkowski, eldest of the Jews of the Litzmannstadt ghetto.
I write these lines not knowing whether I will ever read them again. If anyone will ever read them. My heroic little sister, you're so tired of life. This is an innocent child. God, save us. Let them reach us at the last moment.
Hans Beboff, chief of the German ghetto administration, made a fervent request for everyone to leave for work in the Reich. His voice was especially sweet. Mein Juden, my Jews, the evacuation is for your own good. The front is moving towards us, and the Russians will be cruel to everyone who has worked for the German army. We are motivated by an honest desire to save you Jews from certain annihilation.
Everywhere in the provinces it began like this. I don't trust this supposed trip to the Reich's capital.
He asked the crowd of Jews if they will still work faithfully for the Reich, and everyone answered, Jawohl. They've managed to transform us into such low, crawling creatures. I'm ashamed to be on the same earth as these Germans.
Gestapo Commissioner Fuchs made a few reassuring remarks. For lack of passenger cars, the people would be loaded onto freight cars, but they would be transferred to passenger cars en route. No one has anything to fear.
The evacuation idea is being resisted. People don't want to leave even the ghetto's worst holes.
Jews of the ghetto, come to your senses. Volunteer for the transports. People should report today or tonight at the latest to the assembly points so that they can leave together with their families.
People try to console themselves, deceive themselves in some way. Everyone is indifferent by now because we're so exhausted. This is the final stage.
After they depart, the trains come back, emptied. A note was found in a wagon after it returned to the ghetto. It said the deportees were approaching Kolo, the slaughterhouse. If a ghetto man ever gained power over the world, he wouldn't hesitate a moment before having it destroyed. And he would be doing the one right thing.
August 28th, 1944. From the window of our attic hiding place, we can see the masses moving on Żydowska Street. The last transport is to leave on Tuesday. Anyone who stays in the ghetto beyond that date will face capital punishment. This notice has frightened almost everyone who is planning to hide with us here. They have decided to report. They admire our courage, but they doubt whether we can survive here and think we'll follow after them at the last moment. Everyone wants to be first. No one wants to be last onto those trains. Bebov included in the transport Rumkowski's brother, Joseph. The president asked Bebov not to deport his immediate family. Bebov refused, but said, "You can accompany them if you wish." Rumkowski accepted this dubious invitation. Bebov drove him to the train station and assigned him to a separate car, placing only 12 of Rumkowski's closest people with him. He said goodbye so sincerely. Then, as soon as he turned around, a stormtrooper began assigning deportees onto that very car, probably on Bebov's instructions. In the severe heat, there were over 80 people in Rumkowski's sealed wagon. That's how Hans Bebov fixed him up. Frightening rumors are now going around that all these transports, which were supposedly going to Vienna or to the Third Reich, are actually going to a horrible camp at Auschwitz. And the once omnipotent Rumkowski on one of those trains. I went out in the evening. The ghetto looked so strange. Dead streets. Dead. October 30th, 1944. It's 9 weeks today since our move to this hiding place. Our experience these past few months has proven that he who hides survives. There are 40 of us, hiding now in an ice cellar at 10 Zydowska Street. Our new dungeon is 12 meters deep. Our nerves are shattered, but we're not sorry we defied the Germans and our disposers from the ghetto administration. We think constantly that the Germans are in the courtyard searching for us. January 17th, 1945. Deathly silence. We take turns sleeping. The least murmur upsets us. We've become watchful, frightened animals. Our scouts, several nimble boys, set out at dawn to bring back loaves of bread. There's a lack of oxygen in the hideout. A lighted match dies immediately. How long can we last here? Our scouts saw trucks which had come to transport us to the Jewish cemetery. Any moment now, the search is to begin. If they find our hiding place, I will leave these notebooks in the dungeon. They will be our last trace. Someone suddenly lifts the cover of the hideout. Gentlemen, long live Poland! It's a trick. But some of us are called by name. We use the ladder and climb out. Blinding daylight. Voices crying, "They're coming!" Down Franciszkanska Street, the ghetto gate is wide open. Suddenly, a Russian tank moving slowly. We're deliriously happy, kissing strangers. The Poles gather round us, asking, how did we survive? Pale, emaciated faces. Some of us still wearing the Star of David. Of the entire population of the ghetto, more than 200,000 Jews, about 800 of us remain.